Good. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. This is our second week of doing this webinar, the support webinar around the coronavirus pandemic. And our goal is several-fold. We want to provide a place for us to gather together regularly to get some timely updates on information. We have our team together here again today that we had last week. Dr. Ramsey Asfour will provide us with some medical updates, as will I. Lindsay Christensen, our certified nutrition specialist, will dive in with some thoughts on food and diet, food as medicine, ways to balance the immune system and help control inflammation. And then therapist and EMDR specialist Valerie Keim is back with us today. And we're going to do a little bit of a different format with regards to some of that work. We have the ability within this Zoom platform to build breakout rooms. And so for all of the folks who are participating, when we get to those sessions, we'll have some exercises and activities that we all do together. And then we're actually going to sort everybody into different breakout rooms for the opportunity to connect and discuss. And Valerie will lead us with some exercises and prompts for that. So I'm excited about that opportunity. So it's been a wild week yet again on our end. Personally, I feel the weight and the strain. Juggling work, trying to do our best to take care of our patients. And really feeling the stress and the fear and the anxiety among all of our patients, as well as in my own family and in myself, and noticing how it goes in waves, and noticing that I find myself adjusting to a certain, quote, new reality that we find ourselves in, and feeling like, this is, somewhat the new norm, and being kind of used to it. And then all of a sudden, something new happens that creates an uptick or an increase of stress or anxiety. As always, working really hard, keep breathing, doing mindfulness, doing meditation, getting outside, getting a little bit of exercise. So all these points we'll touch on in detail today. I'm sure many of you are feeling many of those things. And again, we really look forward to the opportunity to provide this place to process that and to talk about it and to have community around it, and try to activate some healing. So this is obviously a very, very intense time for all of us, and again, I'm glad you can be here with us. So with that, I'm going to pause, and Dr. Ramsey Asfour, if you want to jump in, please go ahead.
Hi everybody, and welcome again. So I've just put together a few update slides, and this time we'll have more time for questions. I'm going to go through some of these quickly, just to give you an update on the experience, and also talk a little bit about my experience seeing some patients in the hospital last weekend. So just to say that this just came out yesterday from a CDC publication called MMWR. Basically, and sorry for the layout's not optimal, but the fatality rate was again highest in patients over 85, and ranging 10 to 27%, but very low, again, as we know, in younger people. And so 55 to 64 years old, it's very low, and less than 1% among younger people. And CDC has reported, as of the data through March 16th, no deaths in less than 19 years old. So just to show you what's been happening and what the growth of the epidemic has been, these were the travel warnings on March 12th, followed by March 13th. Yellow, or this orangey yellow color, is no restrictions, no warning. And we can see that they added another color saying moderate warning for all of these countries, and including South Africa, Brazil, Argentina, Chile, Australia, Canada, and the US should be in red, just like Europe and China. And interestingly, Sunja and I have worked, or Dr. Schweig and I have worked with another physician in clinic in China, in Shanghai, and he says things are, he actually wants somebody over there that we are in contact with works for 3M in Shanghai. And he said that, things are returning back to normal there. And there, as you probably have heard, China is going to restrict all international visitors. So the tides have turned and the epidemic has flipped a little bit. Whether or not that lasts is the big question. This is, again, from Hopkins site from this morning. It's updated constantly with the US leading the world in cases. Now we've surpassed China, Italy, and Spain, and I predict will also surpass China, probably Germany, Iran, and France as well. But Switzerland, for example, is a small country, but 12,000 people there, the rate of infections, the number of cases per population in Switzerland is probably very high. I didn't have those numbers broken out. And as you can see, the number of patients recovering continues to be higher, and most people recover. We don't have all of those data, but most people who get infected, as we know, recover. And again, just to go back to the flattening the curve, we've all seen this slide in the media and everywhere. This is what we're doing. And I want to show you in more detail why physical distancing, I don't like to call it social distancing, why physical distancing is important. So this is a little bit difficult to understand, but this is what happened in Wuhan, in China, and in some degrees, all of China. So the red line here in this graph, they call it cordon sanitaire. That's where they implemented, the cordon sanitaire are strict restrictions on movement for a health emergency. So that's when China basically shut down internal movement. And then this is the daily number of cases. You can see that the daily number of cases dropped off dramatically when they did that, when they made that shift. So in this box over here, the blue is before the cordon sanitaire, and the green is after. And you can see that this is the growth rate of cases, and a positive growth rate means the cases are, which is in blue, the cases are increasing. And then, well, green actually means after the cordon sanitaire, but you can see that the trend dropped off dramatically after the cordon sanitaire. You can see that here. So and below the dotted line is a negative growth rate. So they've achieved the negative growth rate by having the cordon sanitaire. And so we know, this is as of today, that China has flattened their curve. So this is their curve. The epidemic picked up, and then they flattened it. It stabilized. This is total cumulative cases. Okay, so these aren't patients that are currently sick, but so they're at about 80,000, and the United States is this light green line. We've surpassed China in this graph. And the epidemic continues to grow in lots of parts of the world. So this is an interesting study, and it's a little bit complicated. The take-home point is that if we shift once we start releasing restrictions, we're going to see more cases. So this is epidemic modeling done by a group in London that shows how you can, if you relax interventions in March, for example, this is the red line, this is what they did in Wuhan, you're pushing out more cases to September, October, November. If you're relax interventions in April, you're pushing those cases even further out into November. And by logic, if you relax restrictions, let's say in June, you'd push the epidemic out probably closer to January or February in the year. That's just lifting all restrictions. It's a mathematical model. And you can see in this graph on the right that the new cases per day would certainly have significantly dropped off. And if we push the curve to the right by releasing restrictions, or when we release restrictions, for example, in April, we're pushing that curve out here to November. So we're not getting rid of this problem by doing 2 weeks of isolation. What we're doing is postponing it to the time where we have more personal protective equipment, PPE, and more ventilators, more treatment and hopefully a vaccine. So, so those are some take-home points. Distancing, again, I like to say physical distancing because we're not trying to do social distancing. We're not trying to break bonds between people. In fact, this is a time to think about those bonds in a different way. So I like to use the term physical distancing. And in a little bit of what's going on in California, this is from the San Francisco Chronicle, and these are cases as of Wednesday evening. As you can see, there's still lots of pending tests. So most of the tests in California are pending. New York did not report pending tests, but they have a lot of cases, as you know. And this is the US total overall number of cases and pending tests and negative tests. So, we're up to 80,000. That's not reflected on this graph. This is a picture of the testing site at the Hayward Fire Station in the East Bay in the Bay Area. And this is in front of a hospital in New York City. People in line waiting to get tested. For the majority of us, I do not think we should get tested. Getting tested uses resources, uses personal protective equipment of healthcare workers. It uses swabs and transport medium, which are in very short supply. So unless the test is indicated for significant reasons, for example, you need to be hospitalized, you're a healthcare worker, perhaps you're the spouse of a healthcare worker or household member of a healthcare worker, or a patient in the hospital. For now, we don't have the capacity to test. That's scaling up. Eventually, I think it's important that we have widespread ability to do testing. And we also have to be careful about the quality of tests. There's some companies recommending home testing. The FDA shut most of those down. Some of those companies might have very good tests, but we just need to have some quality control. So not everybody who wants to can start an online business and test. So something to keep in mind. I also want us to start thinking about, the flip side. We need to be worried. We need to we need to have physical distance. I was appalled when I was in the hospital seeing a patient or seeing multiple patients over the weekend to hear that there were crowds at the beaches in Marin County where I live. So that's not acceptable. We need to maintain physical distance. This is a serious situation. The hospitals are being impacted. The emergency rooms are quite full, and it's scary. And I had to use one mask for the whole day, one N95 mask. I couldn't take it off because once you take it off, you're contaminating yourself. You want to keep it on as much as you can for the whole day. And that's hard to do, actually. I had the straps go on your head. My head was hurting. A lot of healthcare workers are really scared, but they're doing it. They're putting their necks out there. They're not using as much PPE as we would like them to use because we don't have enough, frankly. So we have to be careful about reserving medications, reserving PPE for those who really need it. So this was just some humor here, and I'll let you guys are probably reading that, take a look. But hoarding toilet paper is still, I just don't get that. But anyway, one positive thing is I've had a lot of patients at CCFM who, I try to communicate that we need to work on the nervous system. I think that's one of the central tenets of what we do at CCFM. We really want people to focus on their nervous system because that really drives a lot of stress, whether you have Lyme disease, whether you have autoimmune disease, whether you just have a little bit of fatigue or severe fatigue. We always think about what's behind my head here with our chart that's also on our website, and the nervous system. So a lot of people have been doing too many activities. They complain that, well, they don't have time. Their kids are doing, cheerleading here. Another kid is doing dance over there, and they have to travel all over the state, and they don't have any time for themselves, and they work. and you know what I'm talking about. So this is a time in life where all those external activities are not available to us. So it's a time to take advantage of that opportunity for your own health, for your own well-being, to focus on your nervous system, to rebalance, to be with your families. And when we lift restrictions, it's important to be conscious about what other activities you're letting back into your life. So take this as an opportunity to really think about things uh, from that regard. And I'm going to end with this slide and think about Mother Nature. I don't know if anybody's seen Julia Roberts' voiceover about nature, about Mother Earth, but you know, Mother Earth, what she said was Mother Earth doesn't need us, but we need Mother Earth. So this is an opportunity to think about the environment, to think about how quickly Mother Earth can come back to normal or come back to fuller health when we let it, without as much pollution, without cutting down forests, without uh, a lot of human activity that's been harmful to the environment. So at this point, we'll open it up for questions. And
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Asfor. So if everybody could use the chat box down below, if you have any questions you'd like to ask us, we're happy to field those now. So down below, there's the little chat icon. If you click on that, and you can type a message, we'll pick those up and read them and respond.
in the meantime, I'll just make a few comments about the situations in the hospitals, at least in the Bay Area and in California. It's not like New York. It's not what you're hearing from New York yet. And in fact, one of the hospitals I worked at two over the weekend, where it was strangely quiet. So all the elective procedures have been canceled, and I'm hearing this from a lot of people that work at smaller hospitals and other hospitals all over the country, that temporarily things will get quiet, but then they're going to get really busy. Somebody asked, how does hospital capacity compare in the Bay Area compared to other states? Again, what I said last time is we've taken all our larger hospitals and we've shrunken them down. So our hospital capacity is actually less than it used to be. And it's not ideal, but some of those hospital buildings like California Pacific Medical Center, the Pacific campus in San Francisco and Pacific Heights, is an empty hospital that was just vacated in March of last year. And the governor announced plans along with Sutter Health to reopen the Pacific campus, which has 160 some odd beds. That might help. So that you hear a lot of things on the internet, updated recommendations on immune support. Sindra we'll ask Dr. Schweig to mention that. Do you want to take that one now?
Sure. Yeah, so in general, as we've been refining our take on some of the supplements, the basic recommendations stand for everybody, and optimal diet, optimal sleep, mindfulness, stress reduction, getting outside, getting some movement, working really hard to regulate all those aspects of your lifestyle. Those are just complete no-brainers, really, really helpful across the board, anti-inflammatory, immune supportive, etc. In terms of specific supplements, we're kind of fine-tuning that a little bit. We are seeing that zinc continues to be a good recommendation, even balancing that with copper intake and from foods, etc. So clams, oysters, varieties of different kinds of mushrooms, etc. Herbs like Scutellaria bicalensis potentially helpful, again, anti-inflammatory. Now we're basing that recommendation largely on experience with other viruses in the past, and not, we don't really have detailed understanding yet of how this specific coronavirus it responds to some of these treatments. Vitamin C, And the question, there was a question also in the list about what are we talking about with regards to vitamin A and vitamin D, and that's an important one because frequently with antiviral support, we think even mega doses potentially of vitamin A or vitamin D can be potentially helpful. And these are fat-soluble vitamins, so when you take them, they do stay in your system for a longer period of time. And there's something unique about this particular coronavirus, which is important, which we actually don't necessarily want to take mega doses of vitamin A and vitamin D. And that surrounds this interaction that it has with the ACE2 receptor, which is where it binds. And ACE2 receptors are frequently, mostly in the lungs, but also in the gut. And that's why we're seeing a somewhat significant amount of GI symptoms with this virus. It can present with a mix of pulmonary and and systemic and GI, but it can also present with just GI. So diarrhea, abdominal pain, etc. So ACE2 receptors and high doses of vitamin A and vitamin D can also upregulate some of those ACE2 receptors. So there's a little bit of a theoretical question as to whether it might make this potentially more severe. And then in addition, there's two phases to the virus. There's the initial viral stage when the virus is entering your body, binding to cells, taking over those cells for its own purposes to replicate itself. And there's a secondary phase, which is where most people get into trouble. And that secondary phase is where the inflammation machinery of the body ramps up and you get increased production of inflammatory cytokines. And cytokines are just these little microscopic molecules that the immune system uses to communicate with itself. It's basically saying, hey, we have this type of a problem and it's over in this part of the body, so everybody come over and help out. But those molecules have negative effects on our body too. That's what can make us feel tired and achy and not want to eat and have fever, etc. That's the immune system response. And so in particular, interferon, IL-1 beta, IL-8, IL-6, some of these can actually be upregulated by vitamin A and vitamin D and some of these other nutrients. So we don't want to upregulate those inflammatory pathways in order to protect our body from having a hyper response in that second phase. So long-winded answer, but a couple of things that we're looking at there.
There's another question on, there's a couple of questions relating to where, how is the epidemic going to get in other parts of the country? As you all know, we have patients all over the country. Yeah, I think, part of what is interesting is that I used to live in New York. I'm not a New Yorker, but I'm going to blame New Yorkers a little bit here. We've got an epidemic center a major epidemic center in New York, and those people are traveling from New York to other places. And a lot of those people have second homes in Long Island, Connecticut, Florida, and Arizona, other places. But so we're seeing a lot of the cases in Florida are traceable back to New York. So it's the people leaving New York to go to Florida that are bringing the virus to Florida, to Long Island, and into some parts of Connecticut. There was also a super spreader party in Connecticut where somebody from South Africa brought, there's a lot of cases in South Africa traced to that, cases all over the Northeast and other parts of the country as well traced to that. So travel restrictions within the US are important, actually, and a necessary part of this. So I don't think it's going to be business as usual in terms of lifting those restrictions all over. And we're seeing more spread in places like Chicago and Detroit. Somebody was asking about how long a lot of people about infectious droplets linger in the air. So generally, they don't linger. It's 6 feet is a very safe distance, right? So 6 feet, almost 2 meters. In some countries, they're advocating 1 meter because 3 feet is the real danger spot. 6 feet is also dangerous. And this gets diluted. There's also an inoculum effect. You need a certain number of viral particles to have a chance of getting infected. So if you're going to the supermarket and let's say somebody coughed 6 feet away from you, you're very unlikely to get that infection unless the surface that they coughed on, for example, if they coughed on the handles of their shopping cart and then you put your hands on those handles without wiping down the handle, and then you touch your eyes, you can get infected. So there's a number of steps that are necessary for somebody to get infected, but you have to, that's not, so you can break that cycle at multiple phases. So I'm not personally too worried about eating out. I do go to the grocery store. I'm careful, wash hands. I biked to the grocery store yesterday. I kept my bike gloves. I had long finger bike gloves on. I kept them on in the store. And uh, so I think those are just being careful is important. Is important. Uh,
Yeah,
somebody,
there's definitely sorry, Ramsey, there's definitely a spectrum of, sort of, um, how cautious people are being. And, I think that if you do have, underlying conditions and, you know, or you're of an older age category, but it's tricky because we are seeing a significant amount of young people who are also getting severe disease. So that, the differentiation that was initially there, that maybe this is predominantly in the older or immune compromised, et cetera, that is shifting a little bit. It is still more focused in those groups, but it's definitely the case that young and healthy people are getting very extremely affected in certain numbers as well. If you do have a mask, if you go out to the grocery store, you could consider wearing that. And all the way up to, like, if you take your food or your delivery from, Amazon or Instacart or whatever it is, Costco actually you can get Costco delivery from Instacart as well. What do you do with those items when you get them into your house? And, that's an evolving discussion in our own home. We hadn't been super careful, but it is the case, I think, that on porous surface or cardboard surfaces, that the virus does not survive for as long. But you might consider leaving those items outside, and or bringing them in a staged way, where you have a cleaning station and you wash the hard fruits and vegetables off in a sink with warm soapy water, and then dry them off. Taking items out of packages, and if it's a cereal box, for example, opening up the box and just taking out the inner box, but dumping it. And so if you really do have underlying conditions, or you want to be extra careful, certainly there are extra measures to be done there.
great, Dr. Schweig. I think that there's a question. Some people are asking. There's 4 of us in the household, or however many in the household. You don't need to necessarily avoid close contact with the people in your household. So husband and wives or children, you can still have contact with them. You do want to maintain distance if there's physical distance, if somebody's sick, of course. But in general, you don't. I mean, that might be different if you're a healthcare worker and if your wife makes you sleep in the garage, for example, or if that's there are other considerations, but in general, we're not recommending that the core family unit or the core household unit keep a lot of distance.
Provided that those people, one patient I see who, is talking about roommate situation, provided those people are also being careful. I think at this point, like Dr. Asfar mentioned at the beginning, we all need to be taking again, physical distancing, not social, because we can be together socially, but physical distancing very seriously. The U.S. is really kind of emerging as the unfortunate leader of cases and of rate of climb of cases right now. We're passing everybody else. And, so everybody in your roommate situation, you might feel like you're being the nervous, neurotic, anxious one that's saying, hey, we need to be more careful here. But the fact is that we all need to be very, very careful and make some personal sacrifices right now to help, try to slow down the rate of spread.
And peer pressure, you should be exerting peer pressure on your peers to maintain the social distancing if they're not. That's a great point. And so if your household member, if one of them is not maintaining social distancing, then you might want to maintain physical distancing. You might want to maintain that distance yourself.
There are also, sorry, Dr. Asfar, there are some questions coming through with regards to, Lyme disease, other immune-related conditions, and what's your risk. We did send out an email touching on that last week, and actually just this morning, I had a really good opportunity to sit down with several of my colleagues and record a webinar specifically about Lyme and co-infections, and kind of thoughts, from some leading providers on is there an increased risk to those groups? And so we'll be getting that out hopefully by early next week.
Great. And in terms of people taking Plaquenil, or hydroxychloroquine. Some of our patients have been on that for other reasons, and some people are saying, should I just take some prophylactically? We really don't know, actually, at this point. The biggest study is going on in France right now, but as Dr. Fauci has said, there's a lot that goes on here, and some of the interventions that we think can be helpful might actually turn out to be harmful. So we're going back to and the guidance is going to keep changing, but going back to what Dr. Schweig said about too much vitamin A, too much vitamin D might not actually be helpful, it might be harmful. So we don't know a lot about all the specific interventions. We need more time, which is why we're trying to flatten the curve, encourage what we know works: sleep, hygiene, etc. Some people are also asking about non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen. For now, there's mixed data about just everything at this point. Although vitamin C is looking promising, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories are not necessarily helpful, might be harmful. ACE inhibitor medications for blood pressure like lisinopril, again, same thing, might be harmful. And we just don't know. Should you switch off those medications or not? Some people are, some people are not. But lots of questions that we don't yet have all the answers to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a question about melatonin. There is some emerging evidence that melatonin can be helpful for a variety of pathways. So I am recommending, if melatonin is something you've tried, that it's something which has been helpful for you in the past. If it doesn't make you too groggy in the morning, I think that potentially can be helpful. The propolis spray, question that we did send out an email on earlier this week also, because of some theoretical concerns, again, on the inflammation side, we are recommending that that is not used. You can use other antiviral throat sprays, OSHA, lomatium, a variety of different herbs can be potentially helpful there. Somebody asked about monolaurin also. That's another one that's a little bit mixed. I had been recommending that, but there is another theoretical concern with regards to some of the activity of the virus. So I've backed off on my recommendations for that one as well.
It is very challenging to know, again, as things evolve. Also, one consideration, for example, I have some patients on a Buhner Lyme protocol, and we can't get those herbs anymore, just for Lyme. So patients who need them for other reasons, because everybody's taking them for COVID prevention, or and again, and I highly respect Dr. Buhner, but as soon as he posted his recommendations, almost every supplier was sold out of those herbs. So providers need to be careful about how they speak about this, because we're encouraging people to take all of this stuff that we don't know clinically if it works. Theoretically, things sound like they might work, but clinically, we don't actually know if it's going to work, and that's that's a concern. So, somebody's asking if we can use. Some people are taking inhalers, steroid inhalers. If you need them for lung function, then yes, you should continue taking them. Steroids might theoretically increase your your susceptibility to getting the infection, but they actually seem to perhaps help on the other end with decreasing inflammation, because the people who are getting sick and being admitted to the intensive care unit with COVID are, we're treating some of them with steroids to decrease the inflammation. It's an inflammatory disorder.
Yeah, and if you need that steroid inhaler to control your reactive airway disease, otherwise, for example, you get asthma, severe reactions to colds, flus, etc., then definitely you should be you should stay on that medication. So we'll do one or two more questions before we switch to Lindsay. Somebody asked, can the virus survive once frozen? And I've seen some emerging discussion around this. And there is actually, unfortunately, some evidence for past coronaviruses that they can survive for actually a couple of years when frozen. Dr. Asfor, have you seen that, or what's your take on that?
I have not seen that, but we routinely freeze viruses and bacteria for use later on. So I don't know that freezing them will be effective. Freezing is effective for killing parasites. So that's why sushi in California has to be frozen before you eat it, so that it kills any parasites in the
So
sushi.
so again, if you're bringing in groceries, foods, if you're buying meat from a local butcher and you want to store it in the chest freezer in your garage, spray down paper towel, saturate that with a disinfectant spray and just wipe down all the packaging for those items, and then put them in the freezer, and that should hopefully take care of a future contamination.
Right, exactly.
So one last question you want to grab, Dr. Asfor? Should we switch over?
Somebody's asking about curcumin. Again, I mean, we don't have that much information, but in a sense, curcumin is sort of like a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So, we don't know. We think it's generally great for the immune system, but I wouldn't take if you're taking it for a specific need, continue taking it. But if you're just taking it to prevent this, we don't know enough to recommend doing that.
Great. Wonderful. Okay, thank you, Dr. Asfor.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Much appreciated. And we're going to transition now to Lindsay Christensen. So, Lindsay, if you want to share your screen and present your slide deck, that would be great.
All right, let me know if you can see it.
Yep, we see it.
Got it? Okay, great. All right, there we go. So I wanted to touch on two food and nutrition related topics with you guys today, briefly. One thing we'll discuss is sugar and its impact on your immune system. Basically, one simple step you could take today with your diet, we'll go into this, would be to reduce your sugar and refined carbohydrate intake. And then secondly, I'd like to talk about some food safety tips that were just this past week released by the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, which is really, they're renowned for their public health program and provide some really great information. And they have some tips that they've compiled specifically related to COVID-19 that I thought would be great to share with you guys today. So we don't have a ton of information specifically on sugar and in the immune system, but we do have a nice amount of information on the so-called Western diet, also known as the standard American diet, or kind of a junk food diet, and how that affects immunity. So generally, the Western diet tends to be high in both sugar and fat, but I want to focus more on discussing sugar and refined carbohydrates today. So I found an interesting study showing that it was in mice, but still interesting, showing that the immune system reacts to a high fat and high sugar diet in a similar manner as it would to an infectious invader, like a pathogenic bacteria or a virus. Basically, the concept is that potentially if you're distracting your immune system by eating these inflammatory types of foods, it could prevent you from effectively launching, a successful immune response against a bacteria or a virus like the coronavirus, should you contract the infection. And then another study back from the 70s actually showed that a high sugar diet impairs an immune process called phagocytosis, which is the process that occurs when your white blood cells engulf and destroy harmful bacteria and viruses. So, in our current environment, we don't.
Sorry, Lindsay, you froze for a sec.
Oh.
There you are. You were saying in our current environment, we don't, and then I lost you.
Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I've had some internet issues.
No worries.
I was saying there's a study back from the 70s that found that phagocytosis was impaired by a high sugar diet, and we really don't want to impair that process right now, given the coronavirus threat that we're facing in our environment. So, long story short, if there's one thing you're going to do today with your diet to bring it more towards an optimal diet for your immune system, would be to cut out sugar. And along those lines, refined carbs, flour-based foods may have a similar impact. I didn't include the study in here, but there's an interesting one showing that acellular carbohydrates, which are basically the types of carbs you find in processed floury foods, adversely affect your gut microbiome. And given all that we know about how important your gut microbiome is for your immune system, and actually the fact that there are a lot of ACE2 receptors in your gut, which is how, like Dr. Schweig was talking about, that's how this virus gets into your body. I would hypothesize that we want to do everything we can to support a healthy gut microbiome. And then the second aspect of, the topic of sugar and immunity can be correlated with, what we're experiencing today, because chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease confer an increased risk for a severe course of infection. And we do know that a Western diet with increased risk of type 2 diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. So on that level as well, trying to move away from a high sugar, high refined carb diet towards a more whole foods based diet is something I think we would all benefit from doing. So a very brief discussion of what should you eat instead to your immune system. I feel that doing like a nutrient dense paleo template kind of diet is a great approach for most people. Some food groups you'll want to focus on are non-starchy vegetables, so things like from the cruciferous veggie family like broccoli, Brussels sprouts. For carbs, instead of the refined carbs, doing more nutrient dense ones like sweet potatoes, winter squash, berries. Making sure you're getting. As a side note, this is a really great time to support local farmers if you have access to local farms that sell, grass-fed beef or pastured. A lot of these small businesses are worrying about how they're going to be able to keep going with, the current scenario. So doing everything you can to support them and get fresh, healthy food for yourself, I think is worthwhile. Doing plenty of healthy fats. Doing some gluten-free grains and legumes if you are able to tolerate those. And then fermented foods and bone broth will may have some beneficial immune supportive effects by giving you probiotics from fermented foods, and then possible immune factors and other kind of gut supporting nutrients that you can find in bone broth. So transitioning more into the topic of food safety and COVID-19, I wanted to touch on some patients and clients have been asking me remain to be answered. But as of today, there's no published evidence with the virus. So this isn't at the moment considered a route of exposure. However, something to consider when you're going to the grocery store and bringing home foods is that the virus does survive on surfaces for up to several days at a time. A study from the New England Journal of Medicine found that this particular coronavirus can survive on stainless steel and plastic for 72 hours, on cardboard for 24 hours, and on glass for 96 hours. So when you're going into the frozen food section of the grocery store and touching handles and touching glass, bringing home cardboard boxes of food, you do want to consider that the virus could potentially hang out on these surfaces for a while. And this is why following the CDC recommendations to wash your hands thoroughly and frequently and to sanitize frequently is so important. And they referred to from the, I don't know if we'll ever provide this this presentation directly. Can you hear me still?
You're a little bit choppy. Maybe if you could actually try pausing your video and then keep going, I think we'll be fine.
Okay.
Down in the lower left, actually, you probably don't need, you can still probably do the full screen on the slides, but down the lower left of the Zoom meeting box, there's a little stop video button.
Okay. Sorry, I have to
No worries.
How to exit this screen share.
The screen share exit will be up top.
Okay.
You can hit stop screen share, but I don't know if you need to do that. You might just be able to pause the video by clicking on your Zoom. I'm not sure what you're seeing. Maybe we'll keep going. I mean, I think we're getting most of it, but it is a little bit choppy.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry.
No, no problem.
All right. Let me know if it cuts out again. Okay. So back to those food safety recommendations. So when you do go to the grocery store, it's recommended to wipe down not just the handle, but all surfaces on shopping carts and grocery baskets. And I was just at the grocery store this morning, and most of them are providing hand wipes or like paper towels and the sanitizing spray that you can use. People are going to the grocery stores at all hours lately, but if you can try to find, when the off-peak hours are at the store near you, that may be beneficial, just reduces your exposure to other people. Maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet from other shoppers is also recommended. Thoroughly washing your hands before preparing or eating food, obviously, to prevent transmission of the virus that way. And then in terms of washing produce, some clients have asked me about this, and the public health recommendations here answered a couple questions for me. So basically, because the coronavirus is an enveloped virus, that means it has a membrane that has some fat kind of particles or lipid molecules in there, and it can be disrupted with soap. So the Harvard Public Health School is recommending that you actually wash thick-skinned and kind of tougher produce with a little bit of soap and water before cooking it or preparing it, however you are for eating it. You can also use a scrub brush on tougher produce like large kale leaves or Swiss chard or other leafy greens. I will say make sure you're using like an unscented soap so you don't get a weird flavor with the soap. And then if you are living with higher risk family members or other people and you really want to take every precaution you can also wipe down food packages with some soap and water or hand sanitizing wipes before bringing them into your house. And then one last thing that I wanted to mention was that, ordering food delivery, if you want to get, like some sort of healthy takeout meal, I would say go for it. Most of these businesses are taking really great precautions to keep their workers healthy and their food safe. And it's a good way to support local businesses during this time when our economy is struggling. So yeah, that's about all I have today for you guys.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Very, very helpful. We hope that is some good background information for you guys, for all of our audience here today. So we're going to switch gears. Valerie, I'm going to invite you to join front and center. And I know you have some nice content presented for us today, for us to kind of all be together as a group and process some of these amazingly intense emotions, feelings, fears, anxieties that we're all experiencing. So go ahead, Valerie.
Hey, thanks, Sunja. I appreciate that. And I really appreciate being invited to be part of your team. The rest of the team is...
Glad to have you here.
Yeah, the rest of the team is dealing with viral pandemic, and I'm dealing with the second pandemic, the stress pandemic. And today I'm going to continue with where we left off last week with adding more mind-body tools to your toolkit. I'm going to talk for a few minutes, but primarily I want to give you new experiences that you can take with you and practice every day. And please know that everything I teach, I consider to be the very best, most distilled, universally helpful information from my 30 years of integrative mental health specialist. Some content may be familiar to you, in which case you get an opportunity to deepen what you already know. Some may be new. I invite you to keep an open mind and, above all, practice these exercises every day. The more you do, the stronger the results become. Calm mind, a clear heart, relaxed body. This is the optimal state for improving both physical and mental health. If you practice these daily, your experience of anger, anxiety, and depression will fade. You'll have far more freedom to choose joy and peace over fear and despair. How? As you know, I work in balancing our right-left brain power in order to integrate the tremendous healing gifts of the right brain. This functioning offers pathways that open us to our imaginative, intuitive problem solving, our inner creativity, and our original and joyous connection with all of life. A much needed healing balm, especially right now. Our left analytic, linear, rational brain function is exalted by society, trained rigorously in school, and supported by the culture. Our right brain is tragically neglected, underappreciated, and frankly, a little bit flabby and out of shape. Einstein has a couple of things to say about this. My favorite, perhaps you've heard it before, imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulates progress, and gives birth to evolution. Another prominent scientist, cell biologist who did innovative research in stem cells at Stanford, Bruce Lipton, says that the right brain is the far more powerful supercomputer than the left. Our right brain is like an awesome app or program that's just idling on your desktop. And one of my extra favorites that I'm going to explore today is Einstein's quote, "Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions." This is worth digging into. Think about it. Everything not made by the hand of God or the hand of nature, everything that's human made, started in the imagination. There is not one medicine, not one technology, not a piece of art, architecture, or music that wasn't imagined before it was created. It's that powerful and pervasive. We have this marvelous ability to imagine, forecast, and predict. However, this is a double-edged sword. Aside from endogenous causes, something genetic or medical going on, my professional estimate is that about 85 to 98% of our negative emotions are driven by our, not circumstances, but by our imagination. We have the capacity to imagine the worst case scenario, then anxiously hover over it. We can live in the land of what ifs. What if I get the virus? What if there's no more toilet paper left in the world? What if the stock market and my retirement plan never recovers? Frankly, about 2% of that is useful, helpful worry, and the rest becomes circular, self-ratcheting, adrenaline-producing mental health burden that we can do without. So, I'm going to introduce one simple practice that can disrupt this vicious cycle and put you in charge of your imagination in order to reset your sense of being present, calm, centered in your body, despite current circumstances. And if you practice this for 15 seconds to 2 minutes at a time throughout your day, say 2 to 10 times daily, your experience of the pandemic will be better. How you'll feel, what you tell yourself about it, how you respond will improve. So the aim of the exercise is to strengthen and expand your ability to stay in charge of your well-being despite the pandemic. Ready? We're going to spend maybe 15 minutes. So make yourselves comfortable for the next 15 minutes. If you're sitting down, make sure nothing's on your lap. If you're standing, you might want to sit down. Move, stretch, wriggle about as you need to so you get settled. Get your feet flat on the floor. Best to not have your legs or arms crossed. Because what's going to happen is you're about to relax. And you may as well get a relaxed body position to start with so you don't have to disrupt your relaxation unwinding by uncrossing and settling in even more. And if you have chewing gum or a mint or anything in your mouth, now's a good time to spit it out because you want your body to be at ease and calm. So here we go. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, I invite you to do so. If that's not comfortable for you, please just gaze down at your hands or your lap or whatnot so you can pick up more on the internal sensations that accompany winding down. So we're going to spend a few minutes practicing the releasing breath. I'm sure you're already familiar with some versions of this. So start by breathing as slowly and fully and deeply in through your nose and out through your mouth, allowing every breath to become a little slower and a little softer than the one before. And while you do that, in through the nose and out through the mouth, release on the out breath. You may want to try counting to 4 if that helps your mind to focus. You especially want to follow the physical sensorium of your rib cage and lungs expanding. And if you can, especially your belly expanding. In through the nose, out through the mouth. When I teach this in groups, I have people lie down on the floor and bring a big book and put it across their pelvic cradle. And they have to make that book rise and fall, rise, expand out on the out breath, and then fall back, drop back into their hips on the exhale. So you really want to work your diaphragm muscles while you do this. This breath is effective because in relaxing for several reasons. And while you continue to breathe slowly and deeply, in through the nose and out through the mouth, I'll continue to talk and explain why. First of all, because you're focused on breathing, that incessant chatterbox part of our brain, that hypervigilant monkey brain that checks out. It simply goes, this is too dumb for me. It's below my pay grade. I don't need to be monitoring this, which allows your attention to focus into the present moment. That triggers a cascade of ease and relaxation right then and there, because you're not thinking repetitive anxiety-provoking thoughts. And if your mind starts to race, just bring it back to the physical sensations of breathing. Now, this breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth, was invented in India centuries ago, and yet it's practiced in every current medical institution and hospital, in pain management clinics, sleep management clinics. It's taught to SWAT teams so they can depressurize after a life-threatening event. So there's something to it. In fact, years ago, I had an attendee come up to me very excited after the session. And she said, you know, when I was younger, I volunteered in India with Mother Teresa. And she used that very breath. And we always knew she was stressed out when she started it, and to give her some space and back away. So this breath has lasted down the centuries, and it's good enough for SWAT teams and saints. There's something to it. In through the nose, as slowly as possible, out through the mouth, as gently as possible. And if you find yourself becoming lightheaded or dizzy, back off a little bit. Make this easy for yourself. You'll develop an endurance, a greater and greater capacity for this, the more that you practice it. And just notice while you breathe how your body is responding. And see if you can breathe into any aches or pains or parts that are uncomfortable. You don't have to change them or force anything, quite the opposite. Just breathe. And remember, in Greek, spiri is the word for both breath and spirit. And you can inhale your inspiration, what inspires your spirit. Perhaps on the in-breath, you think of a loved one. And you can exhale a releasing breath of all the stress. You can inhale a favorite line of poetry and exhale a releasing breath. So breathing is free. We do it all the time anyway. We can begin to add this more and more to our daily life. In through the nose, out through the mouth. And while you settle more and more into just noticing your breath, bringing your mind back as many times as possible to the breath, I'm going to take us deeper. And I want you to consider a favorite place. And your favorite place can be anywhere where you feel safe and secure. It could be a favorite vacation destination you've been to and yearn to go back to, or perhaps a holiday place you've always wanted to go to and haven't been to yet. Or it could be a spot from your past. It could be cookies and milk at your favorite grandparents' kitchen table. Doesn't really matter where. Or even curled up on your sofa or bed at home. Just allow in your mind's eye, allow yourself to be there. And just enjoy the experience. Look around you at all the beauty and serenity, the colors. Perhaps you notice what time of day it is. And take that in. Or perhaps you notice the perfect weather surrounding you. And enjoy that. Breathing in through the nose, softer now, and out through the mouth. And while you enjoy your favorite place, perhaps you can feel and hear the sounds around you, the dear, familiar background noises. that are so comfortable in your favorite place. Take that in. Or perhaps you can smell the scent, the fragrance that's unique to your favorite place. And while you do that, once again, take in all the beauty. Perhaps your eye gazes out to the horizon, taking in all the colors of nature. Or perhaps you're inside, gazing around a comfortable and familiar room. And while you do that, allow yourself to go even more into why you pick this place. Just notice. You know exactly why this is your favorite place. And allow that comfort and nurturing to be present. And now we're going to take 3 more breaths. And each breath is going to allow you to relax even more and focus your mind. So your mind becomes more clear and sharp. As I count down from 3, letting go into comfort. 2, exhaling into peace and clarity. And 1, your body releasing all the useless stress. As you further and further enjoy the sights and sounds of your favorite place. And now that you're more centered than ever before in your favorite place, you're going to build a protective wall. And this protective wall is going to keep you in the center of your favorite place, in that rich, warm, vibrant, and juicy place within your body. So you can make your wall, and this protective wall that protects your favorite place, it can be like one of those huge acrylic biospheres that you see in the Arctic or the desert. Or you can make it out of stone like a castle wall. It can be made out of anything, really. It doesn't matter. Just so long as your protective wall is complete circle surrounding your favorite place. It can be as big or small as you need it to be, just so it's circular. And very important that you can see out in all directions. You can clearly see all around you. And while you stay centered inside your special place, your favorite place, protected by your beautiful wall, so nothing can get in. It's automatically repelled unless you personally invite it in. Stressful thoughts or events automatically bounce off the outside with no effort on your part. And just notice how easy that is. That it's like looking out of modern life through the wrong end of a telescope. It's real, it's there, but it's far away. And what's present is this good, grounded sensorium in your own body, having a clear, focused mind, a relaxed heart. And know that every time you take a deep breath, you'll automatically recenter in your favorite place inside your protective wall. And know that anytime you watch too much CNN, you'll automatically take a deep breath and recenter inside your protective wall. And anytime your stress level gets beyond a normal amount, you'll automatically take a deep breath, and instantly be inside your protective wall and your favorite place. And this is real. This really will happen because it's real. And know that any time people around you begin to stress you out, you'll automatically take a deep breath and relax inside your protective wall and your favorite place. And notice how your body feels now. Notice where you feel more ease. Notice what's happened to the pattern of tension or discomfort. Scan your body. Notice how your mind is more quiet. And allow this to continue to support you while your favorite place goes into the center of your chest, where it continues to build its strengthening, calming presence. And allow the noises and sensation of the outer world to slowly return to your senses, and taking all the time you need. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you, Valerie. That was great.
And before we go on any further, if you have pen and paper, or maybe your notebook in front of you, take a few minutes and write down your impressions from this exercise. Write down what was most useful, what was most curious, what you didn't quite understand. So it's kind of like writing down a good dream. If you catch it right after you've had it, you're going to remember more of it later on. This information will come in handy as we continue over the next few weeks. So now, while you do that, I'm really open to hearing from the group for a few minutes any questions you might have about that exercise. And also hearing what was most helpful, what was most intriguing. And especially, what didn't you get? What didn't you work out well for you? So you can type it into the chat, or we could experiment and see if one person can unmute themselves at a time.
Yeah, unmuting yourself on the lower left, if you want to try that to activate your microphone. The lower left of your Zoom screen is a little microphone button with a red line through it. And if you click on it, that would hopefully turn your mic on.
Yeah.
One patient writes in that it's similar to DNRS, but that she likes the addition of the protective bubble.
And I'm so curious, what's DNRS? I've never heard that before.
Oh yeah, we should talk about DNRS. It's a really wonderful program. It's called Dynamic Neural Retraining System.
Oh, right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's been really helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah, these are ancient pathways. These are timeless. You know, people, long before the invention of modern medicine, somehow we survived as a species. Somehow we knew how to take care of our bodies. And our imagination, our thoughts had an awful lot to do with it. So these are ancient pathways. We're wired to have this kind of healing. And I'm so glad the more training and exposure anyone can get to any of these techniques, know that it's maybe new to you or me, but it's not new to our nervous system and our body. We hunger for this. Yeah. Remember too, if you're thinking a question about this guided session we just had, I promise you everybody else in the room is as well. So you'd be asking the question as a spokesman for everyone.
One person says, it's so relaxing, it's hard to keep from falling asleep and or resorting to shallow nose breathing after a while. And that definitely can happen. And, you know, our bodies are so wired up and keyed up right now, and that there's an underlying layer of exhaustion and fatigue. And so, falling asleep or yawning, or suddenly feeling really tired, that could be underlying fatigue, but it also could be that your body's processing the stress. Yawning, as you could talk about, Valerie, too, is a really important sign of that you're processing that stress, and maybe even like dealing with some overwhelm as you're moving towards releasing it. So yawning is actually a really good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe it or not, falling asleep is too.
Yeah.
So if you fell asleep while you were doing this, please know that you were giving your body exactly what it needed, and that it was a success experience, not a failure experience.
Absolutely.
And if you listen to this recording again and again, or recordings like it, and you fall asleep every single time, know you're doing your health, your physical and mental health, a big favor. It's sleep you need. Plus, because of the induction, you're dropping into a deeper phase of restful sleep than you normally would during a short cat nap. So it's really good for you. I know the team was talking about the importance of sleep to boost the immune system. Well, this is like a supercharged sleep. So go with it. And absolutely holding your breath. We hold so much tension in our jaw. It's a place where we really connect a lot of stress. In fact, I've got a quick experiment for everybody to do, since I'm getting a lot of yawning comments. You go like this, and then I've got my headphones on, and then stick your fingers in this little hollow that gets created when you open your jaw. You'll find there's two little hollows on either side. I don't know if you can see where I am. I'll try to get my, yeah. And do you feel that bony plate that's underneath? It's kind of a hard surface, and underneath that hollow, that's not a bony plate. Oops, I dropped my mic. That is not a bony plate. That is muscles and tendons that are so tight they feel like bone. And yawning is releasing that. So it's a good thing to yawn. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I personally hold a lot of stress on the front part of my body, face, eyes, head, mouth, throat, chest, stomach. And I actually had several days last week where I was waking up in the morning with my teeth hurting. And, I'm not, usually grind my teeth or, have that be an issue I deal with, but my teeth were tender and painful. And I realized that my face was so tight from the stress that that was what's happening at night. And so just before bed every night, I've been doing a mindfulness exercise using actually a Buddha app called Buddhify, which I'll tell you guys about at the end. But, just focusing on those areas of stress, breathing into them, releasing them. And it's really, really worked. I haven't had that happen in the last 4 days. So paying attention, learning to see where those places are and release them is really helpful.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. That's super important. You've got to remember that the flight-fight stress response happens automatically and as instantly as drawing your next breath or blinking. But to do something to trigger the relaxation response, we've got to act, make it happen. We have to do something deliberate. That's why self-care and learning how to ratchet down our stress is just so vital right now. We're going to move into the promised and much anticipated section of being able to safely mingle with others. And what's about to happen is you're going to, this current screen is going to disappear, and you're going to get a little pop-up that says, do you want to join a breakout room? And the breakout room is going to put you into a smaller group with maybe 5 people. And you're going to be able to talk and chat and share your stories and what inspires you most. And the talking point, the prompt to start your conversation with, has to do with what's the silver lining in the pandemic for me? What kind of lemonade am I creating out of what kind of lemons that I've been handed? What do I want to take with me that will be meaningful once this is long past and life has moved on? What have I learned about that's new and important? So you get the idea, There's not enough talk about that. There's far more talk about the what ifs. We want to have as many tools and experiences as we can to get away from the land of what ifs. So that's your talking point. What do I want to take with me? What's the silver lining? So if we can do
So just a
that,
couple of logistics before we switch over.
Sure.
When you're shifting into the breakout room and especially back out, I think it is set so that you're automatically muted. So you will have to unmute your microphone so that others can hear you. And Valerie, how long are we going to be in the breakout rooms for? 10
Let's
minutes?
see.
Or?
Let's go for 10 minutes this time. And if you like the breakout room, and if next week you want more time, like 15 or 20 minutes, we'll be sure to build that into the program. But I know, like you, I'm really craving talking with people who are going through the same experiences that I am right now. And at the end of the breakout room, we'll come back just for a final wrap up for a couple of minutes. So I don't seem to have the breakout.
Yeah, Christy will do that in just a sec. Okay. And then Valerie and myself and Lindsay and Dr. Asfar, if you're still with us, I think you are. We have the ability to kind of pop in and out of the breakout room. So you might see us appearing and disappearing again. So we'll be there trying to check in, rotate through the different groups.
Yeah.
So
Great. Okay. One more question I'd like to answer, because this is a really common that comes up, and I thank the person that sent it. To breathe correctly, do you breathe into your abdomen first and then fill your chest? Yes. That's what you do. You want to use those big, powerful muscles like a vacuum that kind of suck the air into your lungs. So your lungs aren't doing the heavy lifting, just the diaphragmatic muscles are. It takes a while. Play with it, experiment with it. Don't be too harsh. Don't judge yourself. Just play around. But you'll feel it when you get it right. All of a sudden there'll be this like a bellows or something that is drawing the air into your lungs, and your lungs remain relaxed.
Yeah, activating your diaphragm also activates the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve 10, which is one of your biggest sources of parasympathetic or rest, relax, digest nervous system information. So, and that frequently gets that signaling slows down, and by deeply breathing and moving your diaphragm, you're actually sending signals back up the brainstem, and that actually can relax a lot of different organs, your lungs, your intestines, your gut, etc.
Awesome.
All right, so Christy, if you want to pop us into breakout rooms, and we'll shift gears, move towards wrapping up. And again, it's been really, really valuable to us to have you guys here. We really appreciate your time and participation, and we plan to keep doing this every week. Oh, there you are, Valerie. Welcome back. So Valerie, I'm gonna do a little wrap up, but I want you to kind of jump in and give us any closing thoughts you might have before we switch gears. And if you are if your mic is on, if you could please mute. I got most of them. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, Valerie, why don't you jump in with any closing thoughts, and then we'll move towards wrapping up for today.
I want to thank everybody for showing up today and participating. And please leave us with your feedback. Send it into the office, or you can contact me through, just Google my name. You'll find my website and my email address that way. We do want to improve this and make it accessible to everybody. So your feedback now during these trial runs is super, super precious to us. So please contribute if you feel inspired to do so. That's about it. And if you have any questions as well, please feel really welcome to reach out and contact me after this is over. I'm like the rest of you, I'm sheltering at home and have lots of time on my hands, so I'm here for you.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much, Valerie. That was really valuable, really, really wonderful exercises and feedback. I think the breakout room structure worked quite well. I have a question for the group, however. I did notice that some people did not make it into the breakout groups, but then were still here. I thought maybe people had just dropped off the meeting. So if you just chose not to go into the breakout room, that's totally fine. But if there was any logistical issue as to what was happening, as to why you couldn't make it into the breakout room, we'd love to hear about that so we can make sure that we streamline the process for next week. And we do plan to be with you again next week. We're going to try to do it at the same time as this, and if that works for everyone, we will send out another reminder email. We're going to stick to the same format. All of our clinicians and practitioners will be with us. We'll provide a medical update with a chance for some Q&A. We'll provide some nutrition and lifestyle, diet, food information as well. And then Valerie will be with us again to lead a session. And we'll try to, again, to integrate the breakout rooms, because I think that was helpful to have a chance for us all to share. You know, and to wrap up, you know, these are crazy times. This is an unprecedented time and situation that we're all living through. And here at the California Center for Functional Medicine, it's our mission and passion to work with people who have complicated health needs, and this is a complicated time for society. And it just feels I'm really honored and grateful to have the opportunity to do whatever it takes to help and to provide this kind of information, to provide this type of an opportunity for us all to gather together and connect, and just take that stress and tension down a couple of notches. And the more you do that, the better everything will work in your body. Plus, the more you do it, the more you start to feel and recognize when you're in a stress state, when you're feeling tight. We don't recognize it on a regular basis. Well, once you get yourself out of that enough times, you start to recognize when you're in it, and that can be another reminder to do some breathing, to do some exercises, to take a moment to pause.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say next week I'm going to teach you how to do 2 different 1-minute stress reductions, where you'll instantly feel the stress drain from your body just like that. And one will be based in emotional freedom technique, and the other is a PTSD management technique that takes about 20 seconds to do. Can bring you out of a state, like you were saying, Sunja, a stressful state instantly, as well as we'll be going back into some guided meditations where you can access those deeper well springs of healing and rest within you.
Wonderful. That sounds great. I'm excited for that. Yeah. And what you can do also for everybody out there is, as you're trying these different exercises, this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. You might resonate with some and not resonate with others. And really, that's totally fine. There's no right and wrong. You're not a good or a bad person if one thing feels more effective or one thing feels less effective, or if things feel hard, or if you're not sure about if it's, quote, working or not. The fact of the matter is that you win just for trying and just for showing up. You're already ahead of the game. So
thank you. That's so important to remember. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You're going to find one thing that works really well, maybe nothing else will, but just play, experiment, try it. And even if you experiment with things you don't end up staying with, that's going to prime you for having a more engaged experience with the things that you do like. And it really does. I was serious when I said our right brain is out of shape. It's a muscle. We need to use it, and it will work better for us. So thanks everybody. Really look forward to next week.
And there's a couple logistic points. The one person asked me to mention some of the apps. I'm a big technology lover, and I think that technology is wonderful. Things we can leverage the high tech and also have it be high touch at the same time. But several of the apps that I love, one is called Buddhify. That one does have a cost to purchase it, pretty low. I think it's about $4.99. There's an upgrade if you want. There's a ton of free content on it though, so you'll be fine with that. Another one is called Calm. Again, a lot of free content, and then a chance to upgrade if you want more. Third one is called Headspace. Very, very helpful. Headspace is nice because they have a lot of packs where there's like a 10-session pack, a 20-session pack of focus on different areas. There's a new one that I've been trying out that a friend of mine mentioned to me last week. It's called Breath Work, spelled BREATHWERK. And this is just a guided breathing app. They have a bunch of different types of breath work exercises, and tells you when to inhale, when to exhale. They time the cycles differently, etc. Really nice. I found myself also just kind of staring at the screen while doing the breathing, which didn't feel very relaxing. So make sure you have the volume turned up, because there's a specific sound for breathing in and a specific sound for breathing out. So once you're used to that, you can turn the screen off and just listen to it, or turn the phone upside down and just really get into a relaxation state. And then finally, there's an app called the Tapping Solution. And Valerie, you alluded to EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. So the Tapping Solution gives you a deep dive on how EFT works. They have a lot of really easy 8 to 10 minute exercises for a variety of health issues, but also some specific ones for anxiety and stress related to this current coronavirus pandemic. So a lot of nice resources there. Try some things out. If you like some, hold on to those. If you don't like others, drop those, and just start to build your own toolkit, your own mental health first aid kit that you can have with you at all times and hold on to. It's going to really serve you and all of those around you. For those of us as kids and family members, the more you regulate yourself, it has an immediate effect on everybody else. So we will again be publishing the recordings of these. We'll let you guys all know on that. That's still a work in progress. Look forward to hopefully seeing you back next week. And one question I had for you guys to kind of ruminate on and maybe let us know, you can send us an email or something. We'd like to open this up to a wider community as well. So at this point, it's been just patients. So, love to hear any feedback on that, if that feels like a good idea, or if you really strongly feel like this should be just for patients. Of course, if you feel like you'd rather be private, you can always change your name to anything you want when you log on to Zoom. You can, where your name is, you just hover there, or there's like a 3-dot icon above where your little picture or video is, and there's a little thing that says rename. So if privacy is a concern, that's one option. Okay. So, and Christy piped in on the chat box, if you do want the recording, you can email us at operations@ccfmed.com, and then we will be publishing that on our website as well. With that, deep gratitude to all of our providers for being here today, to our staff at CCFM for making this happen, and to all of you out there, please stay safe. Practice your relaxation exercises, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.